Hey, what's up, everybody? I just want to let you know that this is from an event called Socal Sword Fight. This very wonderful man did two seminars, not one after another, but sort of just two seminars about a similar subject. And I recorded these. I forgot some camera equipment. Some of my equipment wasn't working. And then, I was just recording using my hands and the shitty little audio thing. So the quality is a little messed up, but other than that, it's really good lesson, and much of his stuff transitions to other weaponry just because of how broad the spectrum is. So I hope you enjoy. I will mention this dude in the comments, well, in the description, and then I'm sure he might watch this video. And if you do, my friend, please list as much of your stuff in the comments as possible. I only have your email, so just go ahead and list as much of your stuff as possible, please. I'll put it in the description as soon as I can. Thank you for watching.
Hi, so my name is Frank Perrin. I'm here on behalf of Bait al-Assad, House of the Lion, and we're talking today about how the shamshir and separ can actually be an effective combination in thrusts. There's a common misconception that you can't thrust with a shamshir. Watch me, I just did it. But for some reason they say you cannot thrust. It's all about the angle and geometry and how these are appropriately delivered. So the class is exploring documented sources, primary sources, along with some living traditions, as well as some experimental archaeology to talk about how to appropriately thrust with the shamshir. Of this is they talk about tapping your opponent's shield out of distance and then moving in. So if I'm out of distance, I tap to distract and then move in. There's another thrust. I mean, you can pin, and what's more effective is that pinning is really good when you're in armor.
Right.
It's a really good thing to do when you're in armor, because also you can pin it. You bring your separ up. You can also pin it higher up, so they can't actually see what they're doing
if they
as much.
come around, you're in armor, you have the protection.
And generally speaking,
That's we were just stabbing each other because we do the same type of things.
Yeah,
we're used to this.
And the thing is, though, is that on the battlefield, the Persians generally weren't using their shamshirs against other people who had shamshirs. Right, very few Iranians had shamshirs. They were an expensive weapon to have. So you fight another person with a shamshir against shamshir, you're more likely to get each other in doubles. That is our version of the double.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because if I'm here and you're here, what you're saying, I'm playing follow. If we both walk up, we both have certain weapons.
Yes.
And now it's the game of who's quicker and who's got better footwork.
But you can also know that this separ can be used actively to deflect that blow. So even if I pin you, you bring yours over, I can still deflect. So you see how that active shield, you still need it. And if I would have just stepped in, there it is. So it's very much knowing your angles. And you guys already have a head up on this because you know that shamshir versus someone else with a shamshir. The double thrusts that you're running into, or cuts to the head double, that's our version of doubles. If one person's going to go here to get it, and the other person has a shamshir, they're going to do the same thing. That's our version of the doubles. But if you've got someone with a straight sword, that is a much more difficult thing to get doubled with, because they don't have the ability to reach around your shield. Does that make sense? Cool. All right. So the next one we're going to talk about is our low line thrusts. And this is where the curvature of these swords come in handy. And I talked about the draw cut, right? I'll borrow Edgar for a second. One of the drills I want to do first is feeling the importance of the draw cut. So you're going to pair up with somebody, and what you're going to do is it's going to feel silly, but you're going to learn the importance of this, okay? What you're going to do is you're going to literally just do these rack cuts straight down, right, like this. So you start doing that, Edgar, bring it up. And we're going to gradually walk into each other. And I want you to feel the moment where your sword is unable to skate through anymore. There will be a moment where it stops skating through. So if Edgar strikes to me, right, and I parry here, he's almost skating through. Do it again. If I parry here, he's not going to skate through. And now that opens me up to push and thrust. If you eliminate the skate, they stop moving through. That's the key to defeating this thing. I know I'm just giving you guys ways to beat me if we fight. But,
If they remember.
yeah, if you remember, you have to actively stop it from skating through. So I want you to play around with that motion with each other, but don't just limit it to here now. Limit it now, stop them from skating through, right? Whoa, figure it out. Maybe come forward again. Whoa, and figure it out and get out of the way. Okay, square up and work that technique with each other. And then from a different, from like a different level. So if I can pull out someone who has a smaller shield, I don't care who are you. All right. There will be times when you will be striking each other online. It's unavoidable. It happens. We all know that. But there's a way you can, in the moment, make it so that your draw through is the one that succeeds on the movement. So let's say we both wind up cutting through each other's heads, right? So see what I did there? So he comes down. I'm still striking. I stopped it. I have skated through enough to get this under and pushed in. So you are the one stopping their sword from pulling through while yours simultaneously comes through. And you notice I moved in close enough where even if he tried to shield dash me, he's not going to generate enough force from here to actually do it. Go ahead, hit me in the nose. I don't give a shit. You're dead. Like, that's the thing. But if you want to be really good about it, you can get to the point where after you come through, you can actually pin everything together and come in. So you are exploiting your pull through to then stab to the stomach. All right, so one other thing I want to work with to let you guys go and have fun for about 10 or 15 minutes. I'm going to pull Edgar aside. If you both wind up stopping at a position where you both stopped each other's draw cuts, this is a really fun thing you can do, and it exploits the back of the shamshir. If Edgar and I both get stuck here, do the thing. You're here, hook the back of mine, and comes in. Yes, there's a risk of bopping your head in the helmet, but if you know where your helmet peak is, it works. Another variation of this, which can lead into a nice thrust, if you come down to my head. So think about that almost being from a tail guard. Because if I skate through on you, right? So let's say I skate through on you and I miss. He comes down, pin, thrust over. Everyone loves this one. And if you want to fight, you know, people love getting you with overhead strikes. That one is so nice. Deflect, pin their arm. With this one, you're using the shamshir, using the separ to pin the sword on and out stab. Because look at this. Now you can't really do much. I can come here. I can come through here. Come here. Ride that curve. So we'll be around to teach you more of this, but feel free to play around with those concepts. This one, people can get carried away with because it's really fun. I suggest a mask if you want to actually hit each other. All right, give it the next 15 or so minutes. Go nuts, experiment. Do the pin, and then we're going to talk about, take like a 5-minute break, and then we're going to talk about some anti-armor techniques with this. Because the other thing is, shamshirs aren't good against armor, lols. So the nuance I want to bring to this that I discussed with you guys, if I can have another small separ person come forward. You guys want to come forward because I did it to you. So the hook with the back of the shamshir, yeah, you can kind of do well if we're both stuck here, right? You can kind of do this ish here and get it if you need. But the real power aspect of this is you are bringing this in here while you are pushing the separ out. And it creates a really strong feet off. And it's a sandwich maneuver. The shield is coming out while your sword is coming in. So it's trapping the hook and allowing you to move around and bring back. And one of the cool aspects is even if we're here, you don't want to actually cut, you can actually do that and then thrust. It's the same concept. You're just moving it out the way and then stabbing it. So take like 5, work that, and then we're gonna take like a 5-minute break and come learn how these things, with their strapping, you can do all sorts of fun stuff against armor. Like you can hold a dagger behind your shield and get to gaps in armor. So we're gonna play around with the separs and their anti-armor concepts next. Take 5, and then take 5 for a breather. Perfect. So armor in the region of the Turco-Persian world, I'm talking roughly from, at this point where our manuscripts are from 14th through like 17th century. You had a lot of lamellar armor, right? A lot of chain. Then you began to see what was called mail and plate armor. Has anyone ever seen that? Right? It's a bunch of mail, obviously, with like plates in it. Polish have their own version, Persians have theirs, Turks have theirs. Regardless of what kind it was, armor sucks to try to combat, right? And you can absolutely thrust to gaps. And later Shamshirs began to taper for that exact reason, to try to split through mail, right? Over in India, you gotta remember, in the 19th, 18th centuries, they were producing armor with literally budded mail. So they had even further tapering swords to push through those budded rings. If you look at the Kilich, for example, if you want to grab a med sword, in the Turkish,
grab a med sword.
Yes, and the Turkish regions, they were not fighting other people as heavily armored, so they relied a lot more on slashes. Persians were fighting other people, other Turks, the Safavids, and they needed their swords to develop the tapers to pierce through armor. Yes, I can. If I want to get to Ahmed's gap, right, I could try to it comes down to my head, right? I could try to come here, push over. I can kind of do it there. Like I could kind of get it. You can do it, it's difficult. But they said, why make our lives more difficult when our equipment can be modified to make our jobs a hell of a lot easier? So let's say Ahmed decides to strike down to my head. Boom, and look where this is. Here, here, here. I can get him wherever I want. If I decide to come, if he decides to strike me and I come down on the other side, boom, I can actually use the hanjar to peel open. From here, throw him to the ground. So, thank you. So these weapons were really used in conjunction with smaller weapons to get to those gaps. I don't have a ton of hanjars, so we're going to line up and we're all going to beat up your instructor. I think we'll just have to beat you. So, who wants to go first? Anyone? Oh yeah, of course you want to go first. All right, so you take this and you can throw the big shield to the side.
So, you didn't mention was the bearded chashkas with the bearded Shamshir.
Can I have the, where's the small red leather one? Oh, I can use this too.
Gold spiked to get the chain.
So, I'm going to straight down to your head, and I want you to do where you drop the sword this way. So think about it, this side of your body.
Okay.
And I want you
The
to,
outside?
yes, and then I want you to rush in and stab me where there'd be a gap in armor. So think elbows,
So essentially like joints.
yes.
Fine.
So if I strike down to you, you're gonna parry off, boom, now what's open for you to get? Bam, right there, there, or this is the fun thing you can do. See this? Now leverage me to the ground. Boom. And now you can pummel me in the face, hit me in the head, pull right around and stab me. So you can use the hanjar to do a lot of joint manipulations and stuff like that. All right, thank you. Pass it on. Who wants to be? We're all gonna stand here, shoulder to shoulder, side by. That's not a thing. You know who did that job?
The Byzantines.
The horse archers. So in the Middle Eastern world, your horse archers would ride out first, encircling your opponents, wearing them down, right? Staggering them, wearing them down, thinning them out. Then your heavy cavalry would come through and plow down who was left. Then your infantry came in to mop up everyone else. So the use of the spear in the Middle Eastern world was an individual fighter's weapon. That's right. It was an individual fighter's weapon, not a group fighting weapon. And we're going to talk about how you would maybe dispose and dispatch other people. So to start with this, footwork, all right, and your stances with the naze. Iranian manuscripts don't actually specifically mention how to stand. It's implied. It's a warrior culture. No one's going to teach you how to stand with the sword. If you're an adult fighting with a sword, you should know how to stand. If you're an adult fighting with a weapon, you should know how to stand. But what I like to say is just keep yourself at about feet shoulder width apart, back foot 45-degree angle, front foot facing forward. Get some nice sink into your knees, okay? The reason why we are not standing on line, like you might think about spear or very linear, is because it is a cutting spear. You need to have a wider step to be able to cut. So we need to have a wider stance colors. These spearheads were also heavier. If you're doing these little tiny little cuts with this, it might drag you offline. So we need to make sure that we can keep ourselves set up. There's two kinds of steps to remember that we use primarily with this. We're going to have our, what we consider an advanced step and our passing steps. I'm not going to get into the semantics of if you're more comfortable back followed by front or front. No, I'm not wasting time with that today. Just know whatever's comfortable for you, that. You also have your passing footwork, which is obviously your feet are stepping right replaces left, okay? Right replaces left, or left replaces right. Unlike a lot of other spears, so go ahead and just play around with that in your place, move the way you need to. But you've got to listen to me chat here. You might, those who've studied Fiore spear, their cuts and their thrusts and cuts are generated generally from a step at the waist, right? You're stepping forward with the foot to generate it. Persian spears, you don't do that. To me, there's no skeletal alignment with this. That's awkward. This does not feel right. With Persian spears, your force is generated elbows, shoulders, legs. This is very skeletally aligned. Everything goes in one motion. This does not feel right to me. You can generate the force from your body and your hip as opposed to just your hip. So remember, we're not stepping forward all the time. There will be thrusts when you are stepping on that hip, but it's not to generate force, it's to get offline. Make sense? Is anyone having a hard time with their brain right now not liking that? It's okay if you are. No? It's okay. It happens. So you have three primary guards that you see in Iranian paintings. You're going to have straight in here, facing basically your opponent's face or their neck, okay? You want to leave about, well, you want to leave enough room for where a butt cap would be. So your hand's coming up for these, probably about 4 or 5 inches from the bottom. Your left hand comes up underneath about halfway through, okay? And there are three guards you're seeing in Iranian miniatures. Straight on, canted down, or sloping up. Strangely enough, what we do not see is any overhand like this. That's not a thing. A lot of people I know who do more Eastern or traditional staff work, if you do anything from like Far East, this is kind of like a normal boring thing. They don't really talk about that with Iranian miniatures. Next thing is the kinds of thrusts that we have. 3 are specifically spoken about. 1 is being thrusting delivered literally just from the arms in the hip, right there. That's pretty standard. There is your lunging thrusts with your arm, your hip, like we talked about. And then there's my favorite, the piston thrusts. Yeah, I love that one. Everyone knows that one. You just slide it up. What makes this even deadlier with the naisays, you think about it, give you one of those lunge and pistons. You're coming in fast. Yeah, right? And imagine, too, trying some of that on a retreat step. Yeah. It's one of those weird things traditional spear fighters go, yeah, you can also poke forward while you step backwards. Oh my! And so that's what I mean. Good luck just closing distance. Oh, just close distance. Sure, just close distance. It doesn't make sense. So this is the part where Frank rambles and gets a little mad. But I haven't picked up Matt Easton yet, which is a shock. How long in class are we in?
I don't know, 15 minutes.
And I haven't picked up Matt Easton yet? Okay,
Give it another 10. Give
Give another 10. I did just pick up Matt Easton. All right. So those are your principal cuts. It's principal thrusts with that. Now, the fun part about this is the cutting. All right, does anybody have any questions so far? Does it feel pretty intrinsic? Yeah.
Do you ever switch your hands to?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's going to play a lot into like what your opponent is using, so to speak. So today we're actually not going to do a ton of spear versus spear. There's going to be a lot of spear versus other weapons, because in the Middle East, your loadout was very warrior-centric. You went in with what you wanted. So if you were more comfortable not with something, not the spear, you're not going to use it. So who knows? But yeah, you absolutely use switch sides depending on the situation that you need. So now our cuts with this. This is where we might be a little more careful of our work. Let's be careful with the wheelchair in the back. So. Oh, cool. You're filming this, right?
Yes.
Because I am not. So it'd be cool to get footage of you after if I can. Great, I appreciate it. Thank you. So, with the cuts, I want you to remember this is a 12-inch long spearhead. You have a sword on a stick. Do not forget that. There's a few primary that are spoken about, mainly in the Timurid, Safavid period, is when the spear manuals become really prevalent. One thing we have to remember is the Iranians were always constant on the battlefield. There's a myth that when other empires conquered Iran, Persians just vanished from the armies. They just stopped fighting. Which anyone knows anything about empires, you don't just stop using the natives. They're integrated into your army. Yeah?
Yeah, I mean, just for example, the Ilkhanate, they conquered Iran, and initially they weren't Islamic, but then they turned Islamic. Would they turn Islamic if there were no Islamic natives?
Yeah, but that's that kind of nuance. Thank you for that nuance in this, right? So Persians generally tended to be the heaviest armored of the people that were conquered. So they were used as heavy infantry and heavy cavalry. And their spear stuff is kind of going to reflect it. So the cuts that we're going to work with here, the first one is one of my favorite ones to land on people, and this is literally a neze barthark sedan, which means you literally to strike the head with the neze. It's a vertical strike, and you bring it up, but not back away, not too much up, because then you're going to get stabbed or rushed. You're bringing it directly pretty much above your opponent's head, and then you step forward and crack down. That front foot stop is important because it helps you distribute the force. Yeah, that you want to land that at the same time. So it comes up, down. And you want to end pretty much on line with your opponent's face. So if you miss the cut, so this one, practice this. You're going to come down for the cut and then piston thrust. Yeah. Think about how scary that is. If you want to distract someone, they have a sword and shield, come down. Boom. So I'm coming forward here. Think about it. I want to distract him. Boom. Whatever you need to do. Come down. You're going to draw them high. Boom. Come low. Thank you. So this uses distraction. I know I got an hour and a half. I know we got plenty of time, but we still got wrestling stuff to get to. Yeah.
That's also
Cuts are just coming slightly off to your left and diagonally cutting through. I want you to notice when I do this, right? I'm not cutting through and then going all the way out here. That's a poor idea. When you cut through, you're stopping. Diagonal, stop with your point on line. Yeah, everyone's got this. All right. Because you guys feel the power in that already? Now the great thing about even if you're fighting someone in armor with this is you got a 12-inch spearhead up there. If that comes down on your clavicle, even wearing mail, that's not going to feel. very good. If you're not heavily armored there, and you just have a gambeson or a gap in between your helmet, that's a nice cleaving spot to exploit a gap there. All right, go to the other side, diagonal through. Good. And I've seen some good use of that snap at the end. It's good to have that snap, but when you handle one of these in real life, which I wish I had, but I could not get that here from Rhode Island. Be careful with the snap because of the weight of the head, right? It's a lot heavier. Cool. Those are your diagonals. You now have horizontal cuts, and these are meant to be cleave the neck. These are you just bring up high and then cut through. So you want to watch me is you bring up high and then cut through. And look at the high line that I'm using this cut on. It's actually helping me snap through. And look at how my arm winds up aligned with the pole. It really feels nice once you snap that through. It's a solid hit. Can I borrow you a look? You can put your call count on the other side just for the sake of this. Up towards your face.
Oh, got it.
Actually, just stand right. You can stand here. Bring it across right here. Okay. I just want them to kind of feel the snap on it.
That's what faux.
Yeah. So one more time. There's a solid snap on that. And I might even go in that full power. Thank you. How do you feel that in your arm?
It sucks.
Yeah. So final ones we have been talking about a lot are your cuts to the leg. And what that's looking like are just pulling it up to the shoulder and striking to the leg. The cool thing about that is they slip their leg or they miss, well then you're just set to come back to that high slope guard. Any questions?
For the front hand, is it ordered or in green?
So there's actually, in India, they do this. In Persia, it's this.
Okay.
I've actually never seen a reference to it being this way. Don't do the manual thing, right? If it works the other way, do it. There's one thing the Persians were good at, too, as a culture, was saying, hey, that shit's really good. We'll also use it. So, like, don't always neglect, just because it wasn't written down, don't do it. And this is my gripe with a lot. Like, we neglect living traditions, we neglect practicality for the sake of what they wrote down. So don't be afraid to try it. Next thing we're gonna do now, yeah.
Whenever you're doing a horizontal cut, are you straightening your arm?
Kind of. So you notice I have here, there is a slight bend in my elbow. There is some give. Because if I struck that shield as hard as I did with the straight elbow, my elbow's gonna be hurt. You just need a little bit of shock absorbency. Cool. All right, next thing. We might need to spread out a little bit or pair off and put some spears down for the sake of this, but I want us to now practice the stepping, the passing steps with the cuts. So, for example, if Edgar and I square up and we're both using spears, if I were to clear his head and try cutting in like this, what's going to happen?
You're stabbing the ribs.
Right. But if I clear his nase, so come up to point, if I clear his nase, now anything he's going to try to do to me back, I can see what he's going to do. So those cuts are delivered offline. You're probably never going to ever take a class in your life where you're cutting with a spear offline. But it's a really practical thing to do. So practice it first, just some steps by yourself. Imagine that you are clearing the spearhead and then cutting offline. And then if we have room, partner up with people. They put me in a very small room for spears. So then pair up and practice that engagement. So I'll kind of walk around. That exists in later ones, but it's mainly just accounts of what people did and how people were told to use the weapons. So I have a little bit of a play here that I'm going to use for spear versus spear when you mess around with this. Can I borrow you? You care? All right, so here's a little play I'm going to give you to bring home. So if you were the aggressor, or you're the one who's going to be winning, you're starting on your opponent's right side. You're going to dip and disengage, just like we talked about, right? And then you're going to step in for that cut. Except now your opponent is actually going to step backwards to avoid the cut. But from here, guess what they can't avoid? And okay, maybe that spear is close to my head, but it's okay. You've got a way to still block it and get out of the way. So imagine what you're learning here is a disengage, cut, and then if they try to escape, piston. So they avoided the cut. What they didn't avoid was that thrust. Bear in mind too, this is a battlefield weapon where you are armored. So if he happens to drop that on your head, you've got a helmet. Even if you're not armored, chances are that this wooden part might drop on your head, or you just get out of the way, or modify it to whoever else you need to. The point of this is, once they avoid the cut, follow up with the thrust. Another way to modify this, watch this. You can disengage, like I said, bam, now avoid that. Now, come in at me. You just step back and piston. That piston thrust is the crucial point of this nese work. Because I can literally just step back and still get you. So play around at home with the piston from the retreat and the piston from the advance. Ahmed's face likes the piston thrusts. Yes, you have a question?
Would they be wearing breastplates?
So it's going to depend. So you're going to remember, even the average Persian infantryman at the time using this probably had a bit more to their loadout than most other regions, so wealthier regions. At minimum, you're likely going to have zera, which is chain, or maybe like in this time period, you're either going to have a lamellar breastplate, or like an early version of what's called a charanye, which is the 4 mirror armor. So like a large plate, 2 small plates here, 2 there. So be tactical with where you're thrusting to.
Yeah, because
And
once you just sort of, it seems like you're like really close and just choosing to go up here. If you
And
want
that's the one next part of this is you can target that stuff too. But you know, if you're just sparring in like regular fencing masks and stuff, anything's a target. But even then too, the same thing can be applied if he approaches in. It's okay, just step back and piston thrust to his crotch. You ain't armored there. So play around with that concept. All right, what kind of time check? This time you're starting on your opponent's, this time you're starting on again, whatever side you need to, and you are clearing. But what's right there? So come back, I'll be nice to you. Boom, crack.
Yeah.
And now, once his hand is taken, you got a fun thing you can do now. Boom. Once that hand is clear, you're coming in now. Here's with the middle ground of closing distance. Take the hand, crack with the haft. It's not pleasant. So one more time. You are disengaging, bam, and notice I'm still stepping offline to get out of whatever the hell way he's gonna do. Bam, I can still take it. Boom, crack, doesn't matter. And once that's open, close it. Or, you don't wanna close in, crack the hand, boom. Just step back and thrust him. Because people also go, well, Frank, why would you bother taking the hand instead of just going for the body? Because then they can't counter you if their hand doesn't exist.
Most people find it hard to hold something without hands.
Yeah, right? That's the quote of this class. You can't hold a spear without your hands.
Not with that attitude.
Not with that. Hold on, just your stump. Just your stump. So go ahead.
Tie
And,
my sleeves to it.
so if you have gloves, if you have something for that, please, because when you're delivering a hewing strike with a spear, you think you're being gentle, but you might actually be it hurt a little bit more than you think it does. So just be careful with each other when doing these. You disengage, grab, and then you just pull them into your spear. It's not pleasant. And then guess what? If they don't want to comply, crack them. And that's how you're closing the distance. Because at this point, right, if I've got this and you don't want to comply with anything I'm doing, well, the most dangerous part of this is already behind me. Crack. Just get him. Just hit him in the face. So now we've covered the long distance with the nese. Now we're middle ground closing distance with the nese. after we practice this, then we're going to start grappling each other and throwing each other. And then your part at the end of the class is going to be a little bit of experimental archaeology, where you can take a spear and any other weapons that you have. So if you've got a long sword, sword and buckler, you want to use daggers, I don't give a shit what it is. Play around with how the Neze person would close distance against that weapon. So that's kind of the rest of the class, is we're going to do a break. Sorry, this play, take a break, and then we're going to introduce some grappling concepts and then some experimental work at the end where you get to just close distance and throw each other. Cool? All right, so go ahead and play around with that, and then we're going to take 5. Any questions? We'll throw off on some games. So, as we know, grappling in Iran is like I said, it's their football. This is what they love to do. And there's an ancient art called Pahlavani wrestling, which literally means hero wrestling. And if you see in Iran today, they have a thing called Zurkhane, which is House of Strength. You see them like talking about John, right? They come out there with the clubs, and they're swinging the clubs around them, and they're doing grappling wrestling practice. It's how warriors train. But Pahlavani wrestling is so ingrained in their society that wrestling was pretty much trained even before swordsmanship, before weapons. You trained to be a wrestler. So one of the examples of this, right, we're going to play with that arm snipe scenario, right? So you come in, and let's say you disengage the spear, and you crack the arm, okay? He should be kind of hurting because you cracked his arm with that spear. But maybe you don't want him dead. So one of the best things that you're going to do now is close distance here, and you're going to take this arm, and it's going to be reached around here, okay? And I want you to feel that when I'm here, where's my body positioning compared to his?
You're slightly lower and on the side of his hips.
I'm lower and he's taller. So, Edgar, go to move and do something to me. Just go to move, try to do something. No? Okay. Yeah, it's about positioning there and changing your ground. Now that was not the move I was going to teach. But ask him, the most annoying thing that I do is a sprawl into a front guillotine. That's how I win most of my wrestling matches. My one-trick pony is I'm just going to sprawl in front guillotine you till you can't breathe. But the actual technique I was going to teach, when you go back, I know you wanted to see some of this, so we're going to gear a little bit. Persians talk about limb sniping with their spears, where they will disengage and crack the hand, which then creates an opening to come in. They drop their spear, now I can come in and grab it. So now you're here, you're lower. The next move is this left leg comes here, use the leverage to sweep him. I use the frickin' pull to leverage him down. Thank you, and you can do it to me. I told you, you get to throw me, because it's just fun. So
also, his right hand is available to grab his dagger.
Yeah, if need be.
Fight.
He could also grab his, but you're going to look at what your opponent has, too. Even if you're fast enough, he ain't probably going to grab that dagger. If you're fast enough, it's going to be tough. And if he does grab it, cool, you're in armor. And he's at a point now, I want you to also realize how tight I am. In wrestling, I'm so tight to him where I can feel every haptic movement he's going to make. I've now squeezed my elbows down. Oh, move my leg. So you want to get tight. Wrestlers need to be tight with each other. But the biggest mistakes in grappling is you see this all the time. You're this freaking far away from each other.
Stupid A-frames.
No, you want to throw someone? Be tight. Be tight. You're tight here, and you can feel what he's doing. You want to be tight. Yes, you're going to feel each other, but at least you're not going to be shot in on. You're tight. So, yeah.
My thought with that move, which it's super common to do the behind and intrinsic thing. I love that so much, but I find sometimes it's the lifting of this leg that's your moment of if they feel that you did that.
Well, that's why you notice if you come back, what I still did was I came around, but look at how sunk I am.
Yeah.
He can't get to this leg, and he can't really sweep this leg because I'm lower than him.
But what about when you lift to get over there?
When I lift?
Yeah.
Not lifting, passing.
Okay.
That's the big thing. Edgar could feel it. If I was if I tried to do this to come up, yep, there I am. Because I stood up. My leverage then became taller than him. So now I'm the idiot who decided to go, okay. But then I can also do fun things here. If I'm down this low, I'm low. Don't be the idiot who stands taller than your opponent, who's trying to bring you down to the ground. Yeah.
Do short people have an advantage?
In wrestling, yep. It's hard for him and I to actually really get each other because we're similar heights. Tall people in wrestling, you can do it. You've got to just be careful about your center of gravity. You have to be careful. Short people are generally not better wrestlers, but our frames are a little better for it. So, yeah.
Sorry, quick question. So in like direct kind of wrestling contact in European full armored fighting, I've noticed that sometimes just the sheer weight of somebody in full armor who's on top of another person in full armor and just literally push a person down. Yeah. Like I've seen that same wrangle end with just this guy leaning on the guy who's lower. So I'm curious if that's a danger and also how to avoid that.
That's a very good question because there's a common misconception in the Middle East that, my favorite one, I mean, Edgar, you might cringe at this. They didn't wear full armor. There was like, what does full armor look like in the Middle East? Not the way it looked in Europe. There's a very Eurocentric way that, with all due respect, Western martial arts practitioners view the way the rest of the world combats in armor. It's Eurocentrism at its finest. Our idea of full armor is not going to look like what Western's full armor is because the warfare was different in the region. And believe it or not, most of the time, the Islamic world was not fighting the Western world. They were trading. They were partners. The fighting occurred mainly during the Crusades, which were shorter periods of time.
And between the Byzantine and Islamic worlds,
right,
they were constantly
there's stuff like that going on. But trade was more lucrative, right? And then the two empires also influenced each other. So there's definitely...
Friedrich II of the Holy Roman Empire.
Yeah, exactly. You got...
You mean the dude that died in the river while trying to crusade? Yeah.
So like, full armor in the Middle East might be different. So full armor in the Middle East, to my opinion, it's geared towards slight more mobility and... Not that European armor isn't mobile. It absolutely is. In the Middle East, it's geared towards a bit more mobility and functionality, as opposed, like, yes, we have more openings and shit, but sorry, we have more openings and stuff, but guess what we're doing in that armor as well as sword fighting? Shooting bows, riding horses. Not they weren't in Europe, but we're shooting bows and riding horses at the same time. Also, they would favor sometimes bigger shields, like the Kalkan, for example. So in India, Iran, and Turkey, you have things like the Kalkan. So all three cultures used like these wicker shields, right? They're larger. So my armor does not need to be as protective in places because I've got a larger shield doing that work for me. I've fought lamellar in boo-hurt competitions. Boo-hurt. And my lamellar has withstood boo-hurt. You know why? Because I don't get hit because I use a shield. Mind blown number 2. If your armor is less, it's okay because you're using other equipment to mitigate your chances of being hit. So even if he's coming at me in lesser armor, if I'm a less experienced spear person, I'm going to have a very hard time getting to any kind of damage in him. It's going to be a very, very hard time. Because I have to be strategic about not only where his openings are, but the fact that he has a larger shield to work around. Does that make sense? Yeah.
And also, like, super heavy armor, like, against horse archers, it isn't going to do much like when the Mongols invaded Eastern Europe and Germany. They all rode out with their knights in super heavy armor, and guess what? The knights all got killed.
It depends on where, right? There's it depends on that. It is a kind of a myth. It is a myth that nomadic arrows just pierce European armor. European armor is strong. It is very strong. But you have to be mindful of where they're getting hit, where the locations were. If a lot of arrows, if you're wearing mail, if you're just like the nobodies or the lesser armored people who are wearing mail, yeah, the arrow's going to light you up like a balloon. Right, sorry, light you up like a porcupine. Heavier armor, you're not going to be as. There's actually depictions from the Crusades, actually, later ones when they had fuller armor of knights just walking around, looking like porcupines. They were alive, but there was just dozens of arrows sticking out. So it depends. Also, early Arab bows, for example. Tell me, my friend, how many trees are there in Arabia proper?
Not that many.
Yeah, so the wood wasn't really the best to make bows in Arabia. They ended up importing Persian bows, Turkish bows, places where there was actually wood to make these bows. So early Arab bows actually weren't very strong.
What was the average weight of a Arab war bow?
I don't know about Arab war bow, I might just stick this, but Persian war bows, 80 to 150 pounds. And that's horse archery bows.
The Mongol bows were 150 because they were better.
But not for that. Let's get to practicing this. So one more time, I'll let Edgar throw me this time. What time is it right now? 12:40? All right, good. We have plenty of time to work on some stuff. So, for example, one example of this again, Edgar is going to disengage me, right? Come under, tack the hand. Boom. Now he's going to slide in, leaving this in between. Take this arm here, put this leg behind me, get in nice and close, use the leverage, and take me down. So we got about 20 minutes left, so I want to make sure you guys get to this, and then we'll do a little bit of the experimental part with like the last 10 seconds. So take 5 minutes, work through these throws, and I want to leave enough time for questions.